Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Every now and then I get invited into a nice home, and very rarely am I invited for dinner. And I was at this point, but we're here at the dining room table with Leslie and Kirk Shadrick, and they are the founders of a new foundation. I don't know whether it's new, but the Benjamin Mario Shadrick Foundation, which I think I can safely say that nobody wishes existed. But I think that the messages that you're bringing are absolutely wonderful and needed. Let's talk. I mean, the website is called benwashere.net, and that's H-E-R-E. And who is Benjamin Mario Shadrick?
Benjamin Mario Shadrick was our son, and he was born in 2018, August 13th. And he was very much anticipated. We really wanted him. And he was diagnosed with a genetic condition when he was in utero, which is a devastating condition called trisomy 18, which is also called Edwards syndrome. And it's a devastating diagnosis because most children don't survive the pregnancy who have that condition. Less survive the pregnancy and are actually born, and much less than 1% actually make it a day.
Oh my gosh.
It's a devastating diagnosis.
But he did survive the pregnancy.
He did. He absolutely did. And he fought from the very first day to be.
He wanted to be here.
He wanted to be here, yeah.
You know, the resilience of humans and babies is amazing.
It is amazing.
At some point. So,
yeah.
You know, the foundation is here, and he has passed.
He actually fought a few conditions. I mean, he was diagnosed with an omphalocele, which means that his organs were developing outside of his belly with a very thin membrane covering them.
Okay.
And we were told that would need surgery once he is born. And but when he was born, most of it had gone in, and the omphalocele was actually turned into an umbilical hernia, which is less severe, which meant he didn't need surgery, which would have been great because they would have refused surgery at birth. He was what, 3 pounds when he was born, so surgery was not an option for him.
Well, that sounds like he was fighting from before he even got here.
Yes.
Which
exactly.
is fantastic. Oh,
yeah.
The surgical team was amazed because they went to assess the omphalocele, and we were at Hopkins at the time. And it was always a relationship with Hopkins. We were in and out of there for the first 3 years. And when the surgeon came in and looked at it, he said, "There's no omphalocele here. Go ahead and cut the umbilical cord." And we were just like stunned because we had prayed for that. We were more concerned about the omphalocele because he also had a heart condition. So that was
holes in his heart.
Yeah, and we fought with the hospital. They had refused the surgery because of all the other things that came with him. So we prayed, and finally a surgeon from Japan happened to be doing at that hospital. He came in and said, "I'll do the surgery." So he took him in, and we knew the odds were against Ben, but he survived the heart surgery with no problem. He came through just like it was nothing. He goes, "Yeah, he's fine."
And that's what extended his life.
Yeah, he started gaining weight, and he started, and
Wait, honey, you're going ahead because he when he was sent home on hospice,
that's
5 days after he was born, they said, you know, he has these holes in his heart. He has the omphalocele. He has trisomy 18. He had everything against him, and they said that he was going to die and that he would eventually stop breathing. And we were instructed to take him home under hospice care, and if he stopped breathing, to hold him and tell him that we loved him and to let him go. And we were at home, and I was holding him, and that's exactly what happened. He just stopped breathing. And then I heard in my mind, for me, it was the Lord who said, shake him, give him a shake. And I thought that was weird, but I did it anyways. And I was holding him, and I shook him, and I said, Ben! And he took a deep breath in, and he would startled him back to life, literally, and opened his eyes. And I did that. I just held him up on my shoulder for 3-4 weeks. And every time he stopped breathing, I would startle him.
Oh, my word.
And bring him back. So he ended up surviving longer than expected. And hospice kept coming to do memorial type.
Yeah.
Beat stamps and handprints, and they were always surprised that he was still with us, not knowing that each time he would have an apnea event, which is what they called it, we'd bring him back. And he ended up surviving 7 months.
Yeah.
And his saturations started to drop steadily, and so we took him to Johns Hopkins, and they were shocked that he was still alive.
This is the same child.
The same child, and it had been 7 months, and they said he wouldn't last 7 days, let alone 7 months. And so we took him in to the hospital to get admitted.
I know they agreed to admit him. They agreed to admit him. They put him in the pediatric ICU. They set him up in there.
And that's when
everything came to a stop, and we just started fighting him. It's like, just do the surgery. I don't know why they were
begging for a surgery.
And then that's when this doctor, I can't remember his name. He ended up going to Chicago right after the surgery. He was gone. We never saw him again, and he was from Japan, and he was considered one of the top cardiac surgeons in the world. How did we pull that guy? It was again another miracle. And then Ben had we finally got the surgery, and Ben's condition improved vastly. With the exception of the trach. We got him the trach
because he kept coding.
Yeah, he kept going downhill, and we never. That was just the last piece of the puzzle that we never could. We took him to specialists up in Philadelphia, and they said, we don't know why he needs his oxygen. We don't quite know what was going on. I mean, we got video of him. He was perfectly a normal looking little boy. He was happy. He bounced around. We had to watch him a lot because he started to crawl.
He would dance.
He would outrun his trach tube, and then we had to grab him and bring him back to the ventilator.
He was crawling.
Yeah, he was.
But during the time, slow down, honey, because there's still a great story before that. Is when we were at the hospital after that surgery, the heart surgery, which saved his life. We were at the hospital for another 9 months.
Yeah, almost a year.
Yeah, 295 days to be exact. And I lived with him in the hospital where we saw amazing, a lot of miracles with Benjamin, a lot of, milestones that he was meeting, and he was just doing so well, but he didn't have the trach at the time. He had oxygen being fed through a cannula.
Okay.
And whenever he would catch a cold or get stuffy, he would code. So they would, the doctors said to us that if we really wanted Ben to be safe, have a safe airway, he needed a trach.
Trach, yeah. Okay.
So it wasn't an easy decision to make, but we knew that Ben wanted to be here, and he was putting so much effort into living, and we wanted to make it easier for him, not to struggle for every breath. So the trach is what became just a saving grace for Ben.
Sword.
Yeah, and a double-edged sword too, because every time the trach would get clogged, it would have to be cleared, and if it couldn't get cleared, it would have to be replaced. So it's just, it was just something that we had to always keep an eye on. But during that time in the hospital, I remember it was 9 months later. I remember I was changing his diaper because I participated in all of his daily activities, taking care of him, because I knew I was going to bring him home. So I knew that I had to be 100% comfortable taking care of him at home. So I made sure I gave him all his meds. I changed all his diapers. I did everything, and I wanted to prove to the doctors he could come home with me. So then I was changing his diaper, and I noticed that his belly was distended. It just looked like a little balloon. And it was just kind of gnawing on me, like something's wrong with him. And his nurse kept saying, oh, it's just gas, or it's just a formula, it's causing that. And I was like, no, something's wrong. I need an ultrasound. And they kind of like argued with me a little bit, but I really pressed for an ultrasound. And that very night, they did an ultrasound. And around midnight, I get the results back. And the doctor comes in and tells me that they found 2 masses on his tiny little liver, and they look cancerous. So they did a biopsy. They scheduled a biopsy to confirm if it was cancer. And about maybe 3 days later, they did the biopsy, and that biopsy almost killed him. Right after this biopsy, they closed him up and they sent him back to his room, and he started to bleed internally. And he was getting filling up like a balloon, and he was turning pale, white, like a ghost. And I was holding him, and I called the doctor to come in and take a look at him. And when the doctor came to look at Ben, his eyes got wide, and all professionalism went out the door. He freaked out, and he just ran outside, and he just got the whole team, and they were all outside of his room trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What's wrong with him? Why is he looking like this? And they couldn't figure out why he looked like that. And it turned out that he was having internal bleeding, and they didn't know where the blood was coming from. So they took him back in to see what they could find, and they were able to take the blood out of his body so that he would just shrink back down to size. But within a couple hours, he went right back up to balloon up, and it was terrifying. We thought we were going to lose him. And then they were going to do this horrific kind of procedure on him where they would take this ginormous long needle and put it into him to take out the blood. And right when they were about to do that, a surgeon walked in, and he goes, stop, no one touched the boy. And everyone's looking at this surgeon and he says, no one touch him. We're just going to let the bleeding happen. And he theorized that if he let the bleeding happen, the blood itself would block whatever it is that is pushing out. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And then it would kind of close and heal, and then he would go back to normal. That doctor sat outside of Benjamin's room for 6 hours waiting to see, and all eyes were on Ben. We were just hoping. It was literally just waiting to see what happened. And then, lo and behold, little by little, his color started coming back. He was getting back to his normal size, and it was just like nothing happened.
Wow.
And everyone was just blown away. And the biopsy came back the next day, diagnosing Benjamin with hepatoblastoma and hepatocellular carcinoma, 2 very rare forms of liver cancer, and 2 tumors to show for it. And his AFP levels were the tumor markers in his blood showed that they were elevated. The doctor, oncologist at Johns Hopkins, the pediatric oncologist, came to my room at 8 o'clock that morning to give me the news, John. And honestly, John, at that point, Ben had gone through so many traumatic moments where we thought he was going to die. I was literally like, okay, this is just something else that we have to tackle. Okay, he has cancer. And I said, okay, so what's the next step? Because there was always a next step, right, to help Ben get better. And the doctor said hospice, and he'll be sent home on hospice.
Again.
Which is the same thing. I mean, this is it blows my mind. Why initially did Hopkins refuse to do the surgery? Just because they figured it was they were playing the chance of
the statistics showed that it wasn't going to be successful.
So why spend the resources on a child?
But we talked to our insurance company, and our insurance representative said we'll the Coast Guard will pay for this, yeah, you just got to talk to somebody at Hopkins to get them to agree. It's we will cover this.
To get them to do
yeah.
The moral of this story is that you listen to a mama.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew
Yeah.
that Ben could survive this, and with the shaking and just everything else.
I just felt it, and a mom does know. She feels it.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage moms, because we tend to look at doctors as all-knowing, but, they're practicing medicine, and I believe in a God who is powerful, all-powerful. So in my heart, he was telling me to fight for Ben, and I did. And there was a time, right, Kirk, when I said to Kirk, put on your commander white uniform on and get to that hospital and demand that they give him the surgery. And he did. He showed up in his white.
Bring in the authority figure.
Well, the people in the office, they were like, I'd be walking in because it's usually just a working uniform. He goes, "Why are you wearing that?" And I said, "I got to go to the hospital. I got to let them know.
Show some authority.
I got to show them whose son they have on deck." I said, "We'll see," and it did. It worked. They were like, "Who is this guy?"
Everything, because I did feel like just a mom who didn't have the respect of the doctors. But at the end, there was a time when the doctors did come to me and they said, kudos to you for standing up for Ben, for fighting for him. And I just want moms to know that they can do that.
So we got him home and we're treating him for cancer.
Right,
we went through the homeopathic route because there was no other option.
Yeah.
And that was actually the cancer that got him discharged from the hospital, because they were going to keep him there indefinitely because they didn't think he should have gone home. But
no, they were going to send him home on hospice with the cancer.
Oh, they were? Okay.
Yeah.
There was so many conversations, so I don't have them all straight in my head.
So, John, this is where the other amazing story is the oncologist told us that there was nothing they can do for Ben because chemo would have killed him because he was so tiny.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, how do you...
And radiation would have killed him. And because of the biopsy almost killing him, resection was completely off the table. So they said we can only offer hospice, and just be appreciate that he lived a year, which
the time that you have.
Yeah,
and
I sounded like a crazy mom to him. I said, Michael, no, there is this therapy. I'm gonna cure my son. I know of this therapy, and he looked at me like, okay, there's no therapy that's gonna cure your son. He has cancer in his liver. And so 20 years before John, I was a student at Lesley College in Cambridge. And I used to work at the Harvard Coop, which is like a bookstore in Harvard Square. Mm-hmm. And they have a little cafe there. I used to work in the cafe. One day it was like a very slow night in the cafe. So I was looking at the magazines in the bookstore, and I came across an article about Suzanne Summers, one of my most favorite actresses of Three's Company.
Come and knock on our door.
Yeah, we've been waiting for you. Which I love that you said that. Anyways, so in the article, it was about how Suzanne Summers cured her breast cancer using natural remedies. And I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever read. I was like, you can't cure cancer with food? That's stupid, But of course, back then, I was a college student, I was a psych student, and I was just always wanting more knowledge, so I began to research it. John, I became obsessed with the topic, but I didn't have cancer in my orbit at that time. I knew no one with cancer, no friends with cancer. No one in my orbit had cancer, but yet I wanted to know, how can you cure cancer with food? So I researched, and I came across the Gerson therapy. And I just followed the Gerson therapy. I went online, I bought their book, I took their course. I just wanted to know. 20 years later, I am face-to-face, 20 plus years later, I am face-to-face with one of the top oncologists of Johns Hopkins Pediatric Department telling me he can't do anything for my son. He's feeling awful about it. And I say to him,
oh, BS.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to cure my son. And because I was so interested in the topic in my youth, I was able to articulate the protocol like a pro.
You know what's very interesting is literally just last night I was at Killarney House and I ran into an old friend, and her father recently had passed away, and he had some sort of a cancerous somewhere in the head. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it manifested in his ear. And he said, I'm not going to do any of the treatment. That was his decision. And he used like a honey, I think she had said. And ultimately it went into remission. It was just honey.
We're believers, John.
And in the end, he got lazy and didn't put it on quite as much as it was. And ultimately, it started to regrow. And I mean, he was fairly elderly. And, so it's a combination between age and, immune systems and I guess and everything else. But it's just, it's amazing there are other options to do that. And I mean, you're a perfect example of what you have now.
Yeah.
The big challenge with anybody going on these homeopathic remedies is stick with them. It's like you literally have to give up all the, you got to give up all the food that you were used to. And I went on it for I've had blood pressure issues on and off. Like this goes with the job. So I went on it for 2 weeks or something like that. And my blood pressure went, even the doctor said, I mean, what are you doing? Your blood pressure is it's the lowest I've ever seen it. And I explained to them what was going on. And we're like, oh, whatever. But you know what? I like hamburgers and stuff. So it's like I got to go back to eating those. So I'll have to get back on it someday. But it definitely, I'm a believer. And when she was telling me about this Gerson therapy, I was like, I've never heard anything about anything remotely like this. And but then I started doing my own research, and it's just not all plant based. It's like certain foods do certain things to the body. So like carrots have an abundance of this particular enzyme that happens to attack or work very well against cancer in the liver. Well, really, and this was years of research that was done long before any of us were here.
Yeah, so it's been around for 100 years. The actual therapy Gerson has been around for 100 years. Yeah. And the whole premise of it is basically create an alkaline system in your body where cancer cannot survive. And not just cancer, no illness can survive in the body with this type of nutrition.
Yeah, it's acidic or alkaline. And generally most human beings, I don't want to get too far in the weeds in this, most human beings walk around in an acidic condition, so they're prone to diseases, where if you do certain things in your diet and you promote more of an alkaline balance,
you can reverse
you get very, very healthy.
And we were surprised to see that not only did it cure Ben's cancer, but it reversed his pulmonary hypertension and his genetic condition.
Really?
Yeah. And so when the doctor, after I finished telling him the protocol, his eyes were wide, his mouth was wide open, and he said, okay, what do you need from me? And I said his name is Michael. I said, Michael, I need him off of hospice. I need him on palliative care, depending on who you're talking to. And I need you on that team. I need a G-tube for my son because I'm going to pump a lot of organic juices into him. And I need to be discharged ASAP. And he said, okay, you got it. And then I said, wait, I also need an ultrasound every 3 months because I want to make sure those tumors are shrinking. And blood work every month to make sure that the AFP is dropping. And he said, okay, you got it. And he sent us home within a week.
And it continued to drop. And it continued to shrink.
So as soon as we got home what was it, honey? I think it was 5 days before Christmas. It was beautiful.
Wonderful Christmas.
And it was the best Christmas gift. And as soon as we got home, we started on a therapy right away. But before that, in those 5 days, I did consult with a Gerson therapy practitioner, Dr. Sarah Wild out of Florida. Because I know the therapy well, it's never been done on a baby. Because it requires coffee enemas, I couldn't give Benjamin a coffee enema.
Right.
Because he's a baby. And so I said, okay, I need to talk to a professional who's going to guide me. Because I don't think it's ever been done on a baby. The Gerson Institute does not work on children at all. So I contacted this doctor. We did a telemedicine meeting. And she modified it. She said, okay, we can't give him a coffee enema, which is the main component of the therapy. And I said, okay, so what could we do instead? And she suggested liquid chlorophyll. And I was thinking, of course, liquid chlorophyll does the same thing. Liquid chlorophyll, when we ingest it, it takes away the toxins from our bodies.
Okay.
So the goal was to remove all of those toxins that Benjamin had built up from the multiple surgeries, from the special formula he was getting, from all the medications that were getting pumped into him. They were all overwhelming his liver, and we needed to get them out to heal him.
Right.
And as soon as we got home, we started on the therapy right away. We had his protocol that Dr. Sarah Wild laid out for us. And 3 months later was his first ultrasound. We get a call from the doctor after the results, and they said that there's a little change in the tumors, but they wouldn't say they were smaller. They said, the texts are different, so, sometimes there are shadows, but there's a shift in the tumors. But I'm like, are you saying they're smaller? And she's like, we're not sure. I said, okay, it's working.
Well, we'll take it.
So we kept going, and every month a nurse would come, and she would take his blood, and his AFP number was dropping every single time. And then the second ultrasound, 6 months later, happened. The doctor said, yeah, they're shrinking.
That's awesome.
And it was the third ultrasound where we got the he's cancer-free report.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at that point, then he's home, he's cancer-free. He's, the trach issue is we're
reversing his respiratory therapy. Yeah, taking away his meds. At this point, we're working with CHOP, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They know their stuff when it comes to pulmonary hypertension in children. They were like, why is he on these meds? He doesn't need these. And they were pulling him off. And they didn't understand. They didn't know the therapy we were doing. But what they noticed was he was on this an exorbitant amount of meds that weren't helping him. And they were excessive. And so they saw that it was just too many meds that he was on, so they started to wean him off of the meds and off the ventilator. Kirk and I went through this parent training with the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential, and it's an institute that believes that you can reverse brain injury in a child, and they believe that any genetic condition in a child is actually a brain injury that can be reversed.
Oh.
So we were trained under them on how to reverse his brain injury, and we were doing all the exercises that they trained us to do.
Interesting.
And he went from laying flat on the floor to getting up on his belly, on his elbows, and to starting to crawl.
That's awesome. And, I mean, so when did Benjamin pass away? Mm-hmm. And that was in 21?
Yeah, he passed away in, it was just before his third birthday. It was June. Yeah. We lost him.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah.
But the accident happened before that. His trach got clogged, and his daddy called 911.
I called 911. I performed CPR. I couldn't clear the blockage. Yeah. And it was like he was there. He was happy 1 minute, and then he just crashed.
His life and his death really impassioned you to start the Benjamin Mario Shadrick Foundation.
Yeah. So
I mean, that has to do with your belief in Christ, and as well as the homeopathic medicine and the ways that alternate ways to treat something that obviously the hospitals, the so-called experts, when he was born, said, well, there's no sense in doing surgery. In essence, I'm sure they had a better bedside manner than that.
Some did.
Yeah, some
of them were not so. I was like, not this one, not this doctor.
That it's, and I hate to even think, but it's not worth this, which is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. But he overcame.
So you've got this foundation that started in memory and in honor of your son.
Yeah. To
promote, sort of holistic healing.
Yeah. Well,
in children.
That's one facet of it.
Yeah. Well, one thing, because we wanted to give people hope. Because, John, we shared this journey with a lot of people, especially with other moms and dads who had children with the same condition as Ben. And it's kind of like sharing an alternative cure for cancer is kind of like a lot like sharing the gospel. Like people will either find hope in it or get really angry and not want to know anything about it. And that's actually been...
We've had friends that completely shunned us because of this homeopathic thing, and they would rather just go through the chemo. And I don't judge anybody for going any of that. I understand that, but our point is they're all alternatives.
There's alternatives because there are kiddos who are sent home with no option, like Ben. Chemo was not an option, radiation not an option, resection not an option, and this was an option for Ben. It was hope. So through our website and our foundation, we want to share that information with parents who were faced with the same message. There's nothing we can do. Take your child home to die. And we want to share this good news with these families.
That there is.
Yeah, that there is.
I'm sure it probably does not work with everyone 100% or anything, nor does
brain cancer,
nor does traditional medicine with that.
Right, no traditional. Yes, it's all you don't know. We always say that the biggest ingredient in the therapy is faith.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about the medical system in the United States, I don't want to get too far into it. It's the best place in the world for catastrophic injury repair or something like that. But for chronic care, this is the last place you want to be. It's just that a lot of countries outside looking in will say,
why
aren't you doing this? I mean, it's like... I don't want to state things for facts because I don't know for certain, but I'm fairly certain that India, when it comes to chronic care, it's all homeopathic. Mm-hmm. And in Mexico, they're open to...
that's where the clinic is.
It's where the Gerson clinic is.
Clinic is in Mexico.
They're open to it down there. Leslie went down there and it cured her aunt of arthritis. She couldn't even get out of bed. She had rheumatoid.
She couldn't get out of bed.
And it was excruciating for her because all she was doing is drinking these plant-based juices and diet. She hated it. But at the end,
lasted a week.
It only lasted a week,
but she was able to walk.
She was walking at the end of that week, and she credits Leslie for doing that for her. But she said, "I just can't keep drinking this stuff. It's just too much for her because it does have an adverse effect on the body. You do feel it for the first week. You do not feel yourself." And
I think any kind of a change in regimen. I mean, if you don't want, just in the very simplest terms. I mean, if you go onto a diet, you feel like crud that first week until you get into it. It doesn't matter whether it's keto or paleo or whatever it is. But you mentioned your website, and that is benwashere.net.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful website because Ben was here. We don't ever want to forget that.
No, we don't want
to. And he still is in certain aspects of the nonprofit, the foundation that you have done is supporting, many different missions. Mm-hmm. I know that one of them was an orphanage and a Christian institute both down in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Also helping, parents get the information that they need to give them the hope and the encouragement that there is another option out there.
Yeah.
That, certainly for a child is you have to look at all of your options.
Yes, all of them.
That's for sure. Well, one of the things that you guys are doing, and as we just talked for the last few minutes here, you are hosting at Maryland Hall an event on November 18th called Movers and Shakers.
Yes.
And that has a lot of resonance with your story from Shaking Ben.
Interesting way of looking at it. But
to having Ben lay flat on his tummy to begin to start to move. And then obviously, you've got the more, business sense of that, but movers and shakers.
And he loved to dance. Ben loved to dance.
We had a little bouncy, the little bouncer.
Right.
And he'd be at that all day, and we'd play his favorite songs. And one of them was the Elmo Slide. And I have that song ingrained in my head. He watched it. It's like any other kid. They get a song and they just want to play it. And that was his song. And then they told us at the Institute says, no more bouncy slide for him because
he has to be on his belly.
It's training him bad habits. He's got to learn to crawl before he's not going to walk in the bouncer. So we had to take the bouncer away, and we were saying, well, maybe just 1 hour of the day.
Oh, you guys are horrible parents.
Yeah, no, not even 1 hour a day. They said they finally relented and said, okay, a few minutes a day, but he should be on his stomach constantly.
And also the tie-in, because we're partnered with Maryland Hall for Movers and Shakers. Mm-hmm. So I think it was very appropriate for us to be partnered with Maryland Hall because art was such an important part of Ben's therapy. He had art every single day. So it just ties in beautifully with the dancing and the art. And I love that you mentioned that shake because that's what really saved his life.
Well, that saved his life the first time. Well, what is the event going to be all about?
Okay, so when I think of movers and shakers, I think of people who get things done. So they are entrepreneurs or philanthropists, business owners, our political leaders, people who see a need and meet the need. And we here at Anne Arundel County, we have a lot of movers and shakers. Mm-hmm. Movers and shakers is like a Dancing with the Stars competition. And we selected some of our local celebrities to dance, and they will dance a Spanish-style dance. And they have been partnered with a professional dance studio like Arthur Murray Dance Studio in Edgewater, the Ballet Theater of Annapolis, and Dance in Time. They were partnered with instructors with those schools, and they learn a Spanish-style dance, and they're going to compete on stage at Maryland Hall on November 18th.
How do you pick the winner? Do we have Spanish dance instructors to pick them out, or is it audience?
Well, we have judges. I have a list because we have actually like 6 confirmed judges. Carl Snowden.
Okay. Wonderful guy.
Dr. Carol Cisco. Mm-hmm. She is the managing partner of Cisco Associates.
Right. I know Carol from the Maritime Museum, and she was in my leadership class too.
Maritime Museum. Oh, she was in your class?
She was in the class for a period, and then there was some work stuff that came up, so she dropped out, but she came the next year.
Leadership. Okay, great. Dr. Dawn Lindsay, the president of Anne Arundel Community College. Gavin Buckley, our mayor of Annapolis, will be a judge. Roxana Rodriguez, who is the owner of Caliente Grill.
I see her tonight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're going to see her? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sarah Elfrith, the senator. And they're going to be judging our confirmed dancers, which are Chanel Compton, executive director of the Banneker Douglas Museum.
Sure.
Frank Campbell, managing partner of Simpson Campbell. Laura Gutierrez, City of Annapolis Community Service Manager. Mary Spencer, the president of Community Foundations of Anne Arundel County. Ryan Snedden, the founder of Naptown Scoop. Mm-hmm. And Steuart Pittman, Anne Arundel County executive. Those are our dancers.
That's awesome.
I know. Isn't that amazing? It's a really good lineup.
So they'll all be dancing there. Yes. Actually, I'd like to see Steuart and Gavin be the dancers.
I would love yes.
Bring in a little bit of Westmore, and we'll call it a...
Right. We were actually hoping that Westmore's wife would be a dancer, Dawn. She's so beautiful, and we would have loved to see her dance, but maybe she'll be inspired for another time.
I know that they're fans of Maryland Hall. I know they've been there quite a bit.
Yeah, but they're so busy, first year in the office, but it's such a great event, and it's actually meant to raise money for Maryland Hall and the Benjamin Mario Shadrick Foundation.
Okay.
So we partnered in this event, and we're splitting the proceeds, and it's to help with, of course, the Maryland Hall goal is to bring art for all.
For everybody, sure.
Mm-hmm. And our goal is to build a self-sustainable orphanage in Cuernavaca, Mexico, because we want to... there is a huge need for safe homes for children in Mexico. The amount of homeless children is increasing day by day. Mm-hmm. And the orphanages there right now are saturated. And I think the story of how we came to decide to build an orphanage is like a whole other podcast.
Okay.
But
we'll have to come back for that.
Yeah, it's just amazing. But we wanted to honor Benjamin in a very meaningful way, in a way that would provide for children for generations, well after we're gone. We have Benjamin's ashes in an urn that when you bury it, a tree grows out of it. And my personal goal as his mom, because I'm not going to be on this earth forever, I want a safe place for his ashes. And I know that when we build this orphanage, we're going to bury his urn in that center courtyard, and a tree is going to grow out of that, and he's going to provide shade for children for generations and generations and generations.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What is and we are audio only, obviously, but what is the connection to the Hispanic Latino? Are you from Mexico?
Mm-hmm. She's got extensive family down there. I met all of them. Okay. It took me a while, but I think I got to the entire family, and so they're a lot of people down there, and they're supporting us, and that's kind of how this thing got off the ground.
This is how actually building this orphanage is very possible, because we have so many people in Mexico who are professional lawyers, politicians, landowners, business owners,
architect. We have an architect that's totally bought on to our.
He's designing the orphanage.
Yeah.
Pro bono.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
It's going to protect us from, the Mexican.
We'll say the bad guys or whatever they are. Right.
Mexico. So yes, my family is from Mexico. My mom is originally from Mexico, and my father's from Cuba. And their story is a whole other podcast.
Okay, so we've got two podcasts to come back. Yeah, back here for Leslie.
Her father was a political prisoner under Castro regime, and like I said, it's like she said, it's another podcast.
Oh my word! Yeah. Well, this is November 18th. Where do we get tickets, and how do we can get tickets at marylandhall.org?
Yes, they're on sale right now.
November 18th, and that's midweek, I think, isn't it?
That's actually a Saturday.
Is it a Saturday night?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's going to be red carpet.
Okay.
So come dressed to impress. Think of like a movie premiere.
Okay.
And, our guests are going to walk the red carpet,
it's like
get
the film
photographed.
festival.
Exactly. Yes, the film festival was just glamorous like that.
Fantastic. How else can we support the Benjamin Mario Shadrick Foundation? We can go to attend this. That's a real easy one. That's a fun night. That's,
yes.
And I hope during this night that you're going to get a moment to tell Ben's story, because that's a story that, we need to know why we're here, and it's a story that needs to be told. That if nothing else, it's a story of hope. It's a story of a parent's love, persistence, and strength, and on your part, on Kirk's part, and certainly on Ben's part, to fight for everything. And you fought for every step of the way from before he was born.
Yeah, and it was worth it, John, because every time they kept saying that Ben was going to die, I kept begging, like I would pray and pray and pray for more time. I would say, I want to get to know him, his personality, and I got to know his personality, and we worked very hard for those moments with Ben, and Ben did not suffer while he was alive. And I really want people to know that, because I know there are people who think that it's compassionate to let the baby go and not fight. Mm-hmm. But Benjamin was very happy. He smiled all the time. He danced. He had friends, his 4 buddies that would come almost every day to play. And I would teach art to them here at the home. They'd come swimming in the pool in the backyard with him. He had a wonderful life. We got to take him to the zoo. Honey, remember? We took him to the zoo, and he got to see animals.
But it's so funny. As I was walking down your hallway, you were showing me the photographs of Ben. And, the young man didn't want for anything. He was, bouncing. He was in the pool. He had the friends. This is, as short as it was, this is a young man that lived his life to the fullest.
He lived his life, and his life had purpose.
And that's something that we all could probably aspire to, live our life to the fullest, to fight, to be strong.
Knowing that we all have purpose.
And to leave a legacy like that. I think that's a beautiful tribute to be able to have fast forward 100 years from now, a tree in the center of a courtyard, providing shelter and shade, and entertainment. I mean, there's going to be kids that can, run around, they can climb it, they can, it's...
Story times under the tree.
What a fantastic, a fantastic story on one hand and just a really tragic one on the other one. And I think that everybody should go take a look at benwashere.net. You've got several photographs up there of Ben. And do you go by Ben or Benjamin? Ben.
Oh, we love both.
Both go back and forth.
It's just such a wonderful name.
Just to say a couple things about the foundation, we are a 501(c)(3). We're registered with our IRS, and we are registered with Maryland. Any donations that you want to give to the foundation are certainly tax deductible.
Can we donate right on the website?
You can
Yes,
donate
you can.
on the website.
Yeah.
And again, that's benwashere.net.
Yes, and we are waiting on some sponsors for the event. We have a few. Yeah, we have some movers and shakers sponsors. Naptown Scoop is one, Caliente Grill, the Ballet Theater, Arthur Marie Dance Studio, Dance Time, and Bay Ridge Wine and Spirits gave us that wink. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, we would love... For me, it would be wonderful for our community to build this orphanage. I don't want it just to be us or the foundation or just a small group. I would love for it to be our Annapolis coming together to build this orphanage.
One thing I will say that Annapolis is a very giving community.
Very giving, yes.
When the S hits the fan, Annapolis will come together. You look at... when they had the shooting in the Capitol, you look at when they had the shooting this June down here, where those 3 people were killed. You look at 20 years ago from when we were recording this, when Hurricane Isabel or Tropical Storm Isabel had rolled into town. We're a resilient town. We're a fighting town, as was Ben. And we do come together for one another, and we do stick up. And that's, and I think we're probably going to do really well by the Benjamin Mario Shadrick Foundation.
I believe that,
on the 18th.
Yeah, and I mean, our community has been amazing here because we have yard sales every Saturday here at our home, every Saturday. And our neighbors from all over come and drop off things that they don't need or want. And we put it out on Saturday, and we have a yard sale, and 100% of what we raise at the yard sale goes towards our
It goes into the foundation bank account. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's wonderful. And it doesn't stay in the bank account long. Yeah. It goes right out to, we just put it to work. Yeah. It doesn't do anything in the bank account.
Well, I've got a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to have to keep that.
Oh, I love that.
Saturdays.
Saturdays.
We'll take it on Saturday.
Our last yard sale is the last Saturday of October.
Very cool. Well, I want to thank you guys for sharing your story. As I said at the beginning, I wish we didn't have to share this story. And what you're doing in the memory of your son is amazing, and you're certainly well on your way to making sure that everybody remembers that Ben was indeed here. Again, I would say benwashere.net is the website. The date you want to remember is November 18th at Maryland Hall. You can get your tickets right now at marylandhall.org for movers and shakers. And, it's worth the price of admission to watch Pittman dance, okay?
It is. I would pay anything.
I mean, I'm going to sit there as I sit there and I look at your list of things there. I mean, Pittman's going to be the entertaining one of the dancers there. That's for sure.
I think so. It's going to be a great show. Yeah,
it certainly will. But Kirk and Leslie, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I feel like like I know Ben, and my heart breaks for you, but it also rejoices for you in a way, and in some sort of a weird way. But thank you so much. I encourage, again, everybody, benwashere.net, and we'll see you all on November 18th, if not at a yard sale on a Saturday, Saturday.
Wonderful. That would be great. Thank you so much, John. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.